Prophet Muhammad was a man, he's flesh and blood, who brought one of the most eloquent revelations to mankind. He's set an example to mankind through his behavior, through his actions, a living example. This is a legacy that he's left for Muslims.
Muhammad's legacy is obviously the seed that he planted. It is his righteousness, his honesty, his integrity, his model as a political leader, his model as an individual, a man who has made great accomplishments in his time, and yet who didn't let the successes overpower him, didn't let his ego get the best of him. He remains, I think, more than anything else, a great role model.
Muhammad is the kind of person who combines political and military and social and religious and intellectual dimensions of life in ways that are important for those of us in the 21st century who are struggling to put together complete lives ourselves.
If I were to have met Prophet Muhammad on the street, I feel like I would know him, and as though he would know all of us. The beauty of it is we live our lives through his examples, but he's not God. Our reverence is to God, and our reference is to him. So how I walk and how I speak and how I carry myself, and how I treat my husband, and how I treat my mother and my father, and how I behave as a sister and a daughter and a nurse and a friend and a neighbor. That's all Prophet Muhammad in action.
Michael Hart, the American author of the wide-selling book, The 100, a ranking of the most influential persons in history, chose Prophet Muhammad to be at the top of the list. He said,
"My choice of Muhammad to lead the list of the world's most influential persons may surprise some readers and may be questioned by others. But he was the only man in history who was supremely successful on both the religious and secular levels. It is this unparalleled combination of secular and religious influence which I feel entitles Muhammad to be considered the most influential single figure in human history."
أشرف الأعراب والعجم خير من يمشي على قدمه.
Many international intellectuals were impressed with Prophet Muhammad's personal qualities and expressed it in their writings. Lamartine, the famous French historian, in his book The History of the Turks, said about Prophet Muhammad,
"If greatness of purpose, smallness of means, and outstanding results are the three criteria of human genius, who could dare to compare any great man in modern history with Muhammad?"
Mahatma Gandhi, the spiritual leader of the Indian independence movement and the pioneer of resistance through mass civil disobedience, said about Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him,
"I became more than convinced that it was not the sword that won a place for Islam in those days in the scheme of life. It was the rigid simplicity, the utter self-effacement of the Prophet, the scrupulous regard for pledges, his intense devotion to his friends and followers, his intrepidity, his fearlessness, his absolute trust in God and in his own mission."
Wolfgang Goethe, one of the key figures of German literature and one of the most famous European poets, who was also a painter, humanist, scientist, and philosopher, said about Prophet Muhammad,
"He is a prophet and not a poet, and therefore his Quran is to be seen as a divine law and not as a book of a human being, made for education or entertainment."
أشرف الأعراب والعجم خير من يمشي على قدمه باسط المعروف جامعة صاحب الإحسان والكرم تاج رسل الله قاطبة صادق الأقوال والكلم
He was that unlettered prophet. He was a mercy and a message. He was a mercy to mankind. He was a great favor. He was sent with an irrefutable truth. He was a man dealing gently with all people. Never in his life did he ever lift his hand to hit any human being. Never. Not a servant, not a wife, not a child, not a friend. He was a mercy to the world. He was the best example to follow. He was the last prophet of mankind. He was sent to all the mankind and the jinn. He was victorious over all systems, and he was created on an exalted standard. Never drank alcohol throughout his life. Never used any kind of intoxicant. He never committed fornication or adultery. He never looked upon any woman with lust in his entire life. This was the manner of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His tolerance, his mercy, his patience, his integrity. Feeding the poor, visiting the sick, discharging the army, acting as a statesman, acting as an arbiter, sewing his clothes, washing his house, shopping for the food, doing all the things that you and I do, and at night standing in prayer for 4 or 5 hours at a time. And in the day, fighting the battles, discharging the armies, giving the ahkam and the rulings, explaining the Quran, instructing the people in behavior. How could a man do all of that and stand 4 or 5 hours at night at one time? What kind of human being could that be? It was a messenger. It was a prophet. This was a man with a message. This was a man in this world, but always thinking about the hereafter. Oh Muslims, oh non-Muslims, think about this kind of man. Have you heard of such a man? Have you ever seen such a man? Have you read about such a man?
He was Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Muhammad, mercy upon mankind. He was Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Muhammad, mercy upon mankind, teacher of all.